Welcome to Deep Fear, where your darkest nightmares turn real. Tonight's story may just keep you awake, so let's start the video. And don't forget to subscribe. This happened to me in late 2021, but even now I have no real way to explain it. I was commuting from Chicago to a small town called Elmsfield. It's not far, just under 2 hours by train. I worked in the city during the day and took the 10:15 p.m. outbound train almost every night to get back home. You'd be surprised how quiet those late trains get. Most of the time, there were only 5 or 6 passengers on my car, if that. A few college kids half asleep with earbuds in, an old man who got off 3 stops before me, and sometimes a ticket checker who barely made eye contact. But one Thursday night, the last Thursday in October actually, I boarded the train like normal and ended up somewhere I shouldn't have. Somewhere I can't find on any map. Somewhere called Darrow Station. I remember running a little late that night. My shift had gone long, and I had to sprint through Union Station to make it to Platform 9. There was a train sitting there, doors open, no conductor in sight. The sign said, Elmsfield Line, right where I needed to be. The interior was dimmer than usual when I stepped in. That was the first red flag. Normally, those commuter cars have warm overhead lighting, not bright, but enough to see clearly. This one felt off. The lights above flickered ever so slightly, like they hadn't been serviced in years. The upholstery on the seats looked older, faded red instead of the usual dark blue. Still, I chalked it up to a different model, maybe an older train, pulled from storage or backup rotation. I didn't think much of it. I took my usual seat near the back, set my bag down, and put in one AirPod. The train pulled away exactly on time. 10:15 p.m. That's when the second red flag hit. No one else was in the car, not a single soul. Even on slow nights, there's always at least 1 or 2 other passengers. But this time, it was just me and the silence. I tried to distract myself, scrolling through some old saved playlists since I didn't have signal. A few minutes in, I realized something else was missing. There were no announcements. Usually the train makes periodic stops with that automated voice. Next stop, Oak Ridge. Approaching Elmsfield. But this train had none. No sound, no conductor, just the quiet hum of the tracks. I looked out the window and felt my stomach turn a little. There were no lights outside, no stations, no street lamps, just black trees rushing past the glass like I was moving through a tunnel carved into the woods. At one point, I pulled up my phone just to check where I was. No service, not even Wi-Fi. The no signal bar wasn't even blinking. My phone didn't recognize any location at all. About 35 minutes in, I realized we hadn't stopped. Not once. Normally, there are 3 stations before Elmsfield, and we always slow down, at least a little. But this train just kept going. Faster, actually. And the scenery outside, if you could call it that, had become even stranger. The trees weren't just dark now. They were wrong. They leaned in unnatural angles. Some had no leaves, others were covered in what looked like ash or dust. I thought maybe I was just tired, my brain playing tricks on me. That was until I noticed the man. 3 rows ahead of me, in the opposite aisle, a man was sitting, completely still. I hadn't seen him when I boarded. I would have noticed. He was wearing a thick gray coat, gloves, and what looked like an old-style hat, the kind you'd see in the 1950s. He wasn't moving, not breathing, just staring forward. I cleared my throat, kind of to make myself feel less alone, and he didn't react. He didn't blink. His head slowly turned toward me, and I swear, it didn't rotate naturally. It jerked like a broken puppet, chin clicking as he faced me. I froze. His face was pale, almost gray. His eyes were way too wide, and his lips were curled in a grin that didn't move, didn't shift, just stuck like it had been carved into him. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it. No sound. But his lips moved anyway, like a whisper on mute. Then, he stood up. That's when I panicked. I grabbed my backpack and stood too, backing towards the door. But the moment I did, he took a step forward. Slow, deliberate, like he was mimicking me. The lights flickered. And in a blink, he was gone. Just vanished from the aisle like he'd never been there. I ran to the connecting door and yanked it open. The next car was pitch black. No lights, no people, just the echo of my own breathing. I slammed the door shut behind me and sat in the very last row of my car, knees up, backpack in my lap. I wanted to believe I had fallen asleep, that I was dreaming, but everything felt too real. About 10 minutes later, the train began to slow. Finally. I looked out, expecting to see Elmsfield Station or something familiar. What I saw instead was the most run-down, fog-covered platform I'd ever seen. A single metal sign hung crooked above the fog. Darrow Station. No people, no lights, no path off the platform, just fog and silence. Then the doors opened. The doors slid open with a sound I can only describe as wet metal, like something rusty tearing itself apart. The air that entered wasn't cold. It was heavy, like breathing through damp cotton. I stared out at the platform. There was no one there, no conductor, no lights, no buildings, just a cracked stretch of concrete and that crooked metal sign. Darrow Station. A thin fog curled around the corners of the train car, slipping inside like it had been waiting for me. My body froze. Every instinct screamed not to step out, not to move, but my legs had other ideas. Before I realized it, I was standing on the platform, backpack over my shoulder, as the doors slid shut behind me. The train didn't linger. It pulled away in silence, swallowed by the thick fog in seconds. And I was alone. The station platform was about 50 feet long. Beyond it was thick woods and what looked like nothing. No road, no benches, no overhead signs, no rail map. I turned back toward the sign just to orient myself. It still said Darrow Station, though the paint looked faded and scratched, as if someone had tried to claw the letters off. Then I noticed something strange. There was a second line of text below the station name. Faint, faded, barely legible. But if I squinted, I could just make out, "Stay here." Not part of the original lettering. More like it had been scratched into the metal underneath the paint. Maybe with a key or a knife. Jagged. Desperate. My stomach turned. I took a step backward, but my heel slipped slightly off the platform edge. When I caught myself, I looked down. No tracks. The metal rails just ended beneath the fog. The train I had arrived on had vanished, but there was nothing below me to suggest it had ever been real. No gravel, no steel, just black dirt and an eerie hum vibrating up through my shoes. That's when I heard the whisper. At first I thought it was the wind, but the air wasn't moving. Then I realized it was a voice. Not loud, not clear, but definitely a whisper, right behind me. I spun around. No one, but something had changed. The fog wasn't just low to the ground anymore. It was rising, fast. It swirled up around my knees, then my waist, then my shoulders, and with it came something I'll never forget. Shadows. They weren't shapes, not like people or animals. They were just darker pieces of the fog itself, moving against the flow, pressing in around me, like the mist had eyes. I took out my phone to use the flashlight. No signal. Still. The flashlight app opened, but the beam barely pierced the air around me. It felt like trying to shine light through smoke. And then, from the corner of my eye, movement. A figure, standing at the far end of the platform. Tall, thin, wearing a long coat, maybe black or dark gray. At first I thought it was the same man from the train car, the one who stared at me. But this figure was even taller, almost inhumanly so. Its arms hung too low. I couldn't see a face, just a shape in the fog, unmoving. I stepped back, and the figure stepped forward. 2 steps, I turned and ran, straight down the length of the platform. As I did, I saw a stairwell I hadn't noticed before, tucked behind the sign. Half buried in moss and shadows, leading underground. No signs, no lights, just stone steps descending into black. But the figure behind me was closing in. I could hear something now. Breathing. Ragged, gurgling. Not natural. I didn't think. I just ran down the stairs. The underground passage was silent, except for the sound of my own footsteps slapping the old stone floor. The walls were wet, covered in strange markings, not graffiti but symbols, circles, jagged crosses, spirals that led nowhere. Some of them looked fresh. I followed the narrow tunnel for what felt like 20 minutes. The deeper I went, the colder it got. And then I saw it. A door, not a real door, more like a metal hatch, rusted and chained shut from the inside, like someone was trying to keep something out. Or in. There was something etched into the metal. 5 deep scratch marks, all running the same direction, like claws. I took a step back. I didn't want to touch it. But then, I heard it again. Whispers. This time, not behind me, from inside the door. And they were saying my name. I froze in front of the door. The voice inside wasn't loud. It didn't yell. It didn't groan like a horror movie ghost. It just whispered my name, over and over. Like it knew me. Like it had always known me. I backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the rusted hatch. The chains were thick, anchored into the surrounding stone. But something was definitely behind it. I could hear breathing, shallow, irregular, like lungs that hadn't worked right in a long time. And underneath the breath, a low scratching sound. Something inside wanted out. I turned and started walking back up the tunnel. Fast. But the air had changed. It was heavier now, hotter, and the markings on the walls, the symbols, looked different, like they were bleeding. I didn't look too closely. I didn't want to know if it was paint or something worse. About halfway up the tunnel, I realized the layout was wrong. I had only come down about 25 steps. But I'd been walking up for over 5 minutes. My phone still had no signal, no GPS. And now, the flashlight was flickering. I tapped the screen. Nothing. And then the light went out. Total darkness. I stood still, afraid to move. That's when I heard the footsteps. But they weren't mine. They were coming down the stairs, slow and deliberate, each one heavier than the last. I didn't wait. I turned and ran back down the tunnel, back toward the whispering door. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. The thing coming down the stairs wasn't going to stop, and it wasn't alone. As I ran, I felt something brush past my arm, like fingers, cold, thin, wrong. I didn't see anything, but I swear I heard laughing, soft, low, and childlike. When I reached the door again, it was open. The chains had fallen to the ground. The metal hatch now swung slightly, creaking, revealing a room beyond, lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The room was small, stone walls, damp floor. In the center there was a chair, and someone, or something, was sitting in it, back turned. Still, I should have run. But something pulled me forward. Not physically, mentally, like I had to see. I stepped inside the room. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the light flickered and went dim, barely enough to make out the shape in the chair. It looked like a man, but not. He was slouched forward, arms tied to the armrests with wire. His clothes were modern, jeans, a red hoodie, but his skin looked off, like it had been stretched and dried, but not rotted, mummified without age. And then he turned his head. The sound it made, I'll never forget it. A sickening crack, like wet wood snapping. His face was blank. No mouth, no eyes, just a smooth, featureless mask of skin, as if someone had sewn his features shut. But despite that, I heard him. He spoke into my mind. We all came through the train. We all got off at Darrow. I couldn't move. He raised one finger, just one, and pointed to the far wall. I turned. Another door, wooden this time, newer, with a metal handle. Carved into it were 5 words. "This way back isn't yours." My heart dropped. When I turned around, the chair was empty. And I ran for the door, didn't care anymore. Didn't care if it wasn't mine. I couldn't stay in that place. I opened it and was hit with cold air and light. Not artificial light, daylight. I stepped through and found myself in the middle of a field, a real place. Trees, sky, birds, distant sound of traffic. Behind me, nothing. No door, no tunnel, no hatch, just empty grass. I dropped to my knees, shaking. Wherever I had been, it was gone. But Darrow wasn't done with me. I must have passed out in that field, because the next thing I remember, I was lying in a hospital bed with dry grass in my hair and scratches all over my arms. A nurse told me I was found unconscious just outside a town called Red Pine, about 30 miles east of Elmsfield. The weird thing? There's no direct way from the train tracks to that field. No paths, no roads, just a thick patch of wilderness with no reason to be there. A farmer had spotted me at sunrise, curled up near a dead oak tree, mumbling something he couldn't understand. I stayed in the hospital overnight for observation, but no one asked too many questions. When I told the nurse I had been on the train, she raised an eyebrow. "Trains don't run through Red Pine anymore," she said. "Haven't since the accident in '83. That hit me hard. I didn't sleep that night. When I finally got home the next day, I found something in my bag that shouldn't have been there. It was a train ticket, old, torn, yellowed like it had been buried for decades. But my name was printed on it. And the destination? Darrow Station. One way only. I swear to God, I didn't buy it. I never saw it before that day. I burned it in my sink, watched the paper curl and vanish, but even after it was gone, things didn't feel right. That night, around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to a noise from the hallway outside my apartment door. It sounded like metal sliding open. I got up, heart racing, and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, but on the floor was a folded piece of paper. I opened the door slowly, looked both ways, then picked it up. It was just a piece of lined notebook paper. No envelope. Inside, in messy handwriting, it said, "You got off too soon. Now we'll send another." No return address, no signature, just those words, and taped to the bottom was another train ticket. This one was blank, except for a time. 2:37 a.m., and the same destination, Darrow Station. For a week after that, I didn't sleep properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man on the train again, the one with the too wide smile and the broken neck. Sometimes in my dreams, he was standing at the foot of my bed. Other times, he was on the ceiling, always watching. I tried to convince myself it was stress, trauma, hallucinations. But then I saw him while I was awake. At the Elmsfield station, a week after it happened, I saw him across the platform, standing perfectly still, dressed the same. Gray coat, black hat, pale skin. And he was staring directly at me, not blinking. The next train that came into the station was old. Too old. Wrong shape, wrong lights. I didn't get on, but someone else did. A man in a suit, talking on the phone. He walked onto the train without hesitation, still chatting. The doors closed, and the train disappeared before it reached the end of the platform. I mean that literally. It didn't pull away. It just faded, like smoke. And then it was gone. Back at home, I started searching online, deep forums, Reddit threads, train enthusiast blogs, anything about Darrow Station. Nothing came up at first. Then I found a post buried in an old ghost story forum from 2014. The title was, "Did anyone else ever take the Darrow line?" One reply. Just one. From a user called XXSleeperTrainXX. It said, "If you made it out, don't ride again. Don't go near tracks at night. Don't fall asleep on moving trains. They watch for people like you, the ones who don't belong there yet." I messaged the user. Got no reply. A few days later, their account was deleted. I've done everything I can to avoid public transit since then. No buses, no trains, nothing on tracks. But sometimes, when I drive near old stations, even ones shut down for years, I feel it. That pull, that hum in my chest, like the one I felt standing on that fog-covered platform. And late at night, sometimes around 2:37 a.m., I hear a train horn. But there are no tracks near my house. It had been nearly 2 months since that night. 2 months since I stepped off a train that shouldn't exist, into a place that erased itself behind me. I thought it was over. I tried to believe it was just a one-time thing, that I was lucky, that I'd escaped whatever the hell Darrow Station really was. But I was wrong. Because last week, I got another letter. No envelope, just folded paper, slid under my apartment door while I was asleep. Same torn notebook, same handwriting. It only said, "Your seat's been reassigned." One way, no return. And this time, there was no ticket attached, just a time. 2:37 a.m. and a set of coordinates. I entered them into Google Maps. It pointed to a railroad crossing abandoned since 1997, deep in the woods just past an old industrial town an hour from me. I didn't want to go. I really didn't. But part of me knew this wasn't something I could ignore. If they were coming again, I needed to face it. I left at 1:45 a.m., drove in silence through winding back roads until I reached the woods. The crossing sign was still there, rusted, dangling crooked. The tracks were barely visible under dirt and weeds, but I knew where to stand, right in the center of the rails, facing the trees. I looked at my phone. 2:36 a.m. The air went still. I felt that pressure again, the same pressure I felt on the platform the night I first arrived at Darrow Station. And then, I heard it, the low hum of a train approaching, even though no rails connected to this crossing anymore. The lights came first. 2 dull orbs in the distance, no engine noise, no horn, just lights, and fog rolling in fast behind them. The same train, same shape, same wrong glow. It wasn't stopping. It wasn't slowing down. But I couldn't move. At the last second, I jumped off the tracks. The train passed through me. I mean that literally. No impact, no wind, just this wave of cold and the sensation of being watched by hundreds of eyes all at once. And then, silence. It was gone. But the grass where I had been standing was burned black. And in the ash was something small. A train ticket. I picked it up. This one was different. It said, "You're already on board." I haven't left my apartment in days. I keep hearing noises at night. Distant chimes, metal clinks, like train wheels rolling over old track. Sometimes I wake up and the whole room smells like smoke and rust. Last night, I opened my eyes at 2:37 a.m. exactly, and my bedroom door was open. Standing there, just outside, was the man from the train. The one with no eyes, no mouth, only that wide, horrible grin stitched across where his face should be. He didn't say anything. He just nodded once and disappeared into the hallway. I don't know how much time I have left, but if you ever board a late-night train that feels just a little too empty, if you ever pass through stations you don't recognize, where the platform signs are scratched and faded, if the train doesn't stop and no one speaks, and the windows show nothing but black trees, get off. Even if it feels wrong. Even if there's no one else around. Because if you stay on long enough, you might never come back. And if you do, they'll know. And they'll come for you. This happened to me and two of my close friends in the summer of 2020, during the peak of the lockdown when people were still trying to escape the city and find something, anything, that felt normal. We were all tired of being stuck indoors. So we planned a last-minute camping trip. Nothing crazy, just 3 guys, a tent, some beers, and a few days away from screens and bad news. We picked a place called Larkspur Ridge, a small campground inside a national forest about 2 hours from where we lived. The thing is, none of us had ever heard of it before. Even when I looked it up, the listing seemed vague. Just a pin on Google Maps, no official website. But there were 5-star reviews from a few people. Quiet, peaceful, private, just what I needed. So we figured, why not? We packed up our stuff, hit the road, and by 4 p.m. we were pulling into the dirt lot at the trailhead. That was the last normal thing that happened. Because the deeper we went into those woods, the more things stopped making sense. We hiked about 2 miles in, following faded wooden signs marked with Campsite 7. There were no rangers, no check-in stations, just this narrow dirt path and thick trees that felt too quiet. At some point, Caleb, one of my friends, pointed out that we hadn't seen a single bird. No squirrels, no bugs even, just silence. That's when we found the campground. Or what used to be one. There were 5 marked lots with numbers carved into old posts, fire pits, rotting logs arranged like benches, and in the center of it all, a broken-down ranger's shack with no windows, half its roof collapsed in. No other tents, no other campers. It was like no one had been there in years. It creeped us out, but we were already there, and it was getting dark. So we set up camp next to Lot 4, cracked open beers, and tried to laugh it off. Around 9 p.m., as we sat by the fire, James, the third guy with us, pointed at something in the woods. At first I thought he was just messing around, but then I saw it too. 2 pale, glowing shapes, deep in the trees, like eyes, reflecting the firelight. They were too far to see clearly, but they didn't move. They just stayed there, watching. Caleb whispered, "Probably deer." I wasn't so sure. We didn't sleep well that night. I kept hearing something walking just outside the tent, slow, heavy, like it had weight, not an animal, but every time I unzipped the flap and looked out, nothing was there. And then, at exactly 3:07 a.m., all 3 of us woke up at the same time. No reason, no sound. We just opened our eyes in sync. James sat up and said, "Do you hear that?" We listened. There was something moving through the woods, but not walking, scraping, like metal being dragged across a bark. Then we heard a low humming sound. Not a voice, not a machine, just a hum rising from the trees. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, then silence, and then laughter. It sounded like a child, or maybe a recording of one, but it was distorted, glitched, like a tape warping. It echoed through the trees once, then stopped. We sat there frozen for at least an hour, afraid to breathe. When the sun came up, we packed everything in record time. We weren't planning to stay another night. No way. But that's when we realized something that still chills me to this day. The trail we came in on? It was gone. The path we had followed into the forest the day before, the one clearly marked on GPS and even lined with old wooden signs, was just gone. We stood at the edge of the campsite, backpacks on, fire long since extinguished, staring into thick trees where the trail should have been. I pulled out my phone. No signal, no maps, no service of any kind. James tried to use a compass app, but the needle kept spinning. Full circles, like it couldn't get a fix on true north. "This is impossible," Caleb muttered. We followed a clear trail in. We walked it. We spent over 2 hours trying to retrace our steps, pushing through brambles, trying to find anything familiar. Rocks, tree markings, signs, nothing. It was like the woods had shifted behind us. And then I noticed something worse. The sun wasn't moving. It had risen, yes. But it just hung there, locked at the same angle in the sky. We checked our watches. Mine said 11:13 a.m., James's 2:27 p.m. Caleb's had stopped completely. We weren't just lost. We were stuck. We returned to the campsite, tired, shaken, trying to convince ourselves it was all just exhaustion or panic, that we'd find the trail once we rested. But things kept getting stranger. At one point, Caleb turned to James and said, "Where's your red backpack?" James blinked. "What do you mean? I've never owned a red—" He stopped mid-sentence. Because he was wearing a red backpack, we all looked at it in silence. None of us remembered him ever owning one. We had packed together. The night before, it had been black. Even James looked disturbed. He unzipped it slowly. Inside were our usual supplies and a small cassette player. We hadn't brought one. There were no cassettes, just the player itself, covered in dust. He pressed play. A voice came through the speaker, not music, not static. A man's voice, calm, matter of fact, like someone reading a radio broadcast. "You're not supposed to be here yet." Click. It shut off on its own. We stared at it. None of us spoke. Then the cassette player began to smoke, just for a second, and the plastic warped in James's hands. He dropped it, and it hit the dirt with a heavy thunk. Still no signal. Still no trail. Still that quiet. That night, we didn't even pretend to sleep. We sat together by the fire, backs to each other, watching the tree line. No stars in the sky, no moon, just dark. At around 1:40 a.m., we heard something moving again, this time closer. I turned and saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees. It wasn't trying to hide. It was tall, maybe 6 feet 5 inches, gaunt, wearing what looked like an old parka. Its face was obscured by something dark and round, almost like an old gas mask. It didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink. It just watched. I whispered, "Do you see that?" Caleb said, "Yeah." James was already picking up the hatchet we brought for firewood, but before anyone could do anything, it vanished, just blinked out of existence, like a TV being turned off. We couldn't take much more. When dawn came, or what looked like dawn, we decided to leave any direction. Forget the trail, forget orientation, just go somewhere until we hit a road or river or anything real. We packed fast and started moving due east, according to James's phone compass, the only one that had started working again. We walked for 3 hours, and then we saw it. The exact same campground, same fire pit, same collapsed shack, same log with the split in the middle that Caleb had tripped over the night before. We hadn't moved at all, but we had. When we saw the same exact campsite, Same burned-out logs, same broken shack. After walking in a straight line for hours, something inside me cracked. I dropped my pack and just started yelling. I didn't care anymore. Yelling at the trees, at the sky, at whatever was doing this to us. Caleb didn't say anything. He just sat down and buried his face in his hands. James started pacing, muttering to himself over and over, "This isn't real. This isn't real." But it was, and something about realizing that, accepting that this wasn't a normal forest, that it didn't follow the rules of space or time, actually made us a little calmer. Because if it wasn't real, maybe the danger wasn't either, right? We were wrong. That night proved it. It was maybe an hour after sunset, not that we knew for sure anymore, when we heard the sound. Not footsteps, not whispering, but a low, grinding sound coming from inside the collapsed ranger shack. We all turned at the same time. None of us had gone near that thing since we got there. It looked too unstable, too ruined. But now there was a dull orange light glowing faintly from the inside, like firelight, or a lantern. James grabbed the hatchet again. "I'm going to look," he said. I grabbed his arm. "Dude, no, it's bait. Whatever it is, it wants us to check it out." He pulled away. "Then we find out what's doing this." He walked slowly toward the shack, stepping over rotten boards and broken glass. Caleb and I followed about 10 feet behind. The light inside flickered like a candle. And then it spoke. A voice from inside the shack. Deep, gravelly, like someone trying to speak through wet lungs. "Who brought you here?" We stopped. James raised the hatchet, but the voice didn't speak again. Instead, the door creaked open. There was no one inside, just a lantern, flickering, and sitting beside it was a map. James stepped forward and picked it up. It was hand-drawn with thick charcoal lines. No roads, no markers, just the outline of the forest, and on the edge of it, a single circle labeled "Way Out." None of us recognized it. But it was something. A direction. Beneath the map, scratched into the wood floor of the shack, were 4 words. "Take nothing with you." We didn't understand what that meant, but we were too scared to care. We decided we'd leave at first light, take the map's direction and go, even if we had to burn through the woods in a straight line. We finally fell asleep that night. Just for a little while. But something woke us. It was a scream. Caleb's. I sat bolt upright and saw his sleeping bag flailing like he was fighting something. We both jumped up, tried to grab him, but when we pulled back the bag, he was covered in black handprints. Dozens of them, all over his chest, neck, face. He was gasping, choking, eyes wide in panic. We dragged him out into the clearing. No one else was there, just fog. No footprints, no figures, nothing. He kept mumbling. "They're in the trees. They're in the trees." He wouldn't talk for hours after that, just sat with his back to the fire, watching the tree line with red, sleepless eyes. By morning, the handprints had faded. But Caleb was done. We all were. We left everything behind. Tents, gear, water, everything except the map. We walked the way it pointed. Hours passed, then more. The air got colder. The forest grew darker, even though it should have been midday. We were moving uphill now, the only change in elevation we'd seen since we got there. And then we saw it. A door, just standing in the middle of the woods, upright, freestanding, like someone had yanked it out of a house and dropped it there. It was tall, old, red, with a black metal handle and nothing behind it but more forest. There was a word carved across the top in capital letters. Exit. We stood in front of the red door for a long time. It didn't make sense. There was no frame, no walls. Just a single, upright door in the middle of the woods, standing on its own. Still, the word was right there, carved into the wood. Exit. "I don't care what this is," James said. "If it takes us out of here, I'm going through." He reached for the handle. "Wait," I said. "What if it's a trap?" Caleb, who hadn't spoken much since the attack the night before, looked up slowly and said something I'll never forget. "We're already in the trap." He was right. So James turned the handle. The door creaked open. Behind it wasn't the woods, it was black, not like nighttime or darkness, more like the absence of everything. No wind, no sound, just a hollow, empty blackness that somehow looked deeper than the forest around us. He stepped through and vanished. No sound, no flash, no scream. 1 second he was there, the next gone. I looked at Caleb. He was shaking. "I can't," he whispered. "I can't go through that." I didn't blame him. Every part of my body was screaming not to step into that void. But we couldn't go back. We both knew it. I took a deep breath and walked through. I don't know how to describe what happened next. I didn't fall. I didn't walk. It felt like my body disappeared, and my mind was moving through memories, moments, versions of reality, like flipping through TV channels that were all me. I saw myself at age 6, riding a bike down a hill. I saw myself in a hospital waiting room. I saw myself asleep on the train, the night we left for the camping trip. Only this time I never woke up. And then I opened my eyes. I was standing on a road, a real road, asphalt, power lines, an old gas station across the street. It was dawn. The forest was behind me, thick but not unnatural, just regular woods. And standing next to me, pale, shaking, was Caleb. We had made it out, but James hadn't. We searched for him, called the police, filed missing persons reports. They combed the forest, even found the campground. But everything looked normal. No red door, no ranger shack, just overgrown sites and a few old fire pits. They didn't believe us, of course. We stopped talking about it after a while. We had to. But that wasn't the end. Because a week after I got home, something showed up on my front porch, wrapped in newspaper, no label, no return address. Inside was a small black cassette player and one tape. I pressed play. There was only one sentence. "One stayed behind." Voice on the tape still echoes in my head sometimes. "One stayed behind." That's all it said. No static, no noise. Just those words, in the same voice we'd heard in the ranger shack. And then it clicked. James didn't just stay behind. He chose to. A few days after that, I got a text from James's number. No message, just a pin location. I opened the map. It pointed to Larkspur Ridge, the exact campsite. I tried calling back. The number was disconnected. I told myself it was a mistake, a glitch, someone spoofing his number. But Caleb called me 2 hours later. He got the same text, same pin, same silence. We agreed we wouldn't go. We couldn't. But that night, just past 3 a.m., I had a dream. Or maybe it was something else. I was in the woods again, walking toward the red door. Only this time, James was waiting on the other side. His skin was gray, his eyes wrong. Too big, no color. He didn't speak. But behind him I could see the forest, not the one we were in, but what's underneath it. Structures, machines, things not built by people, and dozens of others, all standing still, silent, watching, like they were waiting for something. Then James leaned forward and said calmly, "They let you go." But they didn't forget. I woke up in a cold sweat. The cassette player was gone. So was the tape. I called Caleb. He answered on the first ring. "I saw him," I said. "I know." he whispered. He talked to me too. We didn't say much after that. There wasn't anything left to say. That was 3 years ago. Every now and then, I hear something outside my apartment. Metal scraping, static, the sound of distant humming. And sometimes, I see things in the woods on my drive home, standing between the trees. Figures, still, tall, watching. I never stop the car. I never answer blocked calls. And I never, ever look at the clock when I hear the knock at my door after midnight. Because if I do, I might see the time, 3:07 a.m., the exact minute everything changed. This happened to me and my girlfriend during a road trip last fall. We were driving from Colorado to Northern California, just the two of us, switching off every few hours, cruising mostly through rural highways and long mountain passes. Around day 3, somewhere deep in Nevada, our GPS glitched out. We were on a stretch of 2-lane blacktop with no gas stations for miles. The kind of highway where you don't see another car for over an hour. That's when we saw a sign. Exit 34. Bedrock Hills. 2 miles. Neither of us had heard of Bedrock Hills, but we were nearly out of gas and both had to pee. So we took the exit. It curved sharply and dipped below a rusted overpass that looked ancient. No lights, no other signs. Just a faded green post and a cracked asphalt road leading into a tree-covered valley. That was the first red flag. The trees weren't like the ones we'd passed before. They were tall, impossibly tall, and the branches curved inward over the road like a tunnel. We drove under them for maybe 5 minutes without seeing a single house or car. Finally, we spotted a sign on the right. Welcome to Bedrock Hills Establishment, 1901, Pop 601. But the 601 was crossed out in black spray paint. Underneath it, someone had written, 0. I slowed down. My girlfriend leaned forward, frowning. This place feels off. That's when we saw the town. A gas station, a diner, maybe 10 or 12 one-story houses, all wooden, all run down, with peeling paint and boarded-up windows. It looked deserted. Still, the gas station had lights on. Flickering, but on. We pulled in. I killed the engine, grabbed my wallet, and stepped out. The second my feet hit the pavement, it felt wrong. Like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. My girlfriend stayed in the car. She was nervous, said something felt too quiet. I agreed. But we needed fuel. Inside the station, the shelves were mostly empty. No cashier behind the counter. Just a flickering fluorescent bulb and a faint smell of mildew. I rang the bell. Nothing. I waited. Still nothing. Finally, I stepped behind the counter to see if there was a switch or call button or anything. And that's when I saw the calendar. It was flipped to October 1997. I swear to God, it looked new. Like it had just been hung up. That's when I heard a noise from the back room. Something like a voice. Whispering. I froze. Then, suddenly, the bell above the door jingled. I turned fast, expecting to see my girlfriend, but no one was there. Only the door swinging gently closed. I stepped outside. My girlfriend was still in the car, windows rolled up, looking at me with wide eyes. She mouthed, "Let's go." I didn't argue. I got in, turned the key. Nothing. The car wouldn't start. Not a cough, not even a click. It was like the battery had been ripped out. I popped the hood. Everything looked fine. But the engine felt cold, like it hadn't been run in hours. I slammed it shut and looked around. The town was silent. No birds, no wind. Just that creeping sensation that we weren't alone. We sat there in silence for a minute. That's when we saw it. A figure, across the street between 2 houses, just standing. It wasn't moving, just there, watching. I couldn't see its face, just the shape of it. Tall, thin, wearing a dark coat or robe or something that seemed to shift in the light. Then it tilted its head and vanished. Not walked away, not ran, just gone. We didn't wait. We grabbed what we could from the car, water bottles, flashlights, phones, and started walking back toward the exit ramp, hoping we'd find a signal or a ranger or anything. But the road behind us was gone. I mean, gone. It didn't curve back. It didn't fade into trees. It just stopped, like the exit had never existed. And carved into the asphalt where the road should have continued were 5 words. We stood at the edge of the broken road, staring at the cracked asphalt, and those 5 words burned into it. No exit after entry. Stay. My girlfriend looked at me, her voice shaking. What does that mean? I didn't answer. I was still trying to figure out how the road we just drove down could simply not exist anymore. It wasn't blocked. It wasn't overgrown. It was just gone. She grabbed my arm and whispered, "Someone's messing with us." I wanted to believe that. But deep down, I already knew the truth. This place wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. We decided to go back toward the gas station, not because we wanted to, but because it was the only building with lights still on. Maybe there was a landline, or tools, or something. As we walked, I started noticing things I hadn't before. The houses weren't just abandoned. Some of them were staged, like someone had frozen a moment in time. One house had a dinner table set for 4, with full plates, forks placed neatly, half-melted candles. Another had an open front door, and a TV still playing black and white static, except there was no power grid. I had checked the gas station. The wires were cut. And the worst one? A swing set behind a house, creaking gently in wind that wasn't blowing, with one swing slowly turning in place, like someone had just jumped off it. Back inside the gas station, we tried every phone behind the counter. Nothing worked. There were no cell signals either, just static, even on GPS. I opened a drawer beneath the register. Inside was a notebook, torn pages, old, but a few entries were still readable. The first one said, "Day 1, car stalled near exit 34, came to town. Couldn't leave." Another, "Day 3, they come at night." They try to look like people you know. And the last one, written in darker ink. "Day 6, I'm not me anymore. I saw myself outside the window, still smiling, still watching." I showed it to my girlfriend. She didn't say a word, just walked outside and threw up. That night, we stayed in the back of the gas station, locked the door, blocked it with a shelf. We kept the lights off. Around midnight, we heard it. Footsteps, not running, not stumbling, just slow, steady steps, circling the building. Then, knocking, from the back wall, not the door, from inside the store. We held our breath. Another knock, closer, then a voice. "I saw you take the notebook." I grabbed the flashlight and turned it on, shined it toward the storage room. No one there, just the sound of the bell above the front door jingling, even though it was still locked. We didn't sleep. By morning, or what felt like morning, we decided to explore the other buildings. We checked the diner across the road. Inside were dusty menus, cups still on tables, a cash register wide open and empty. But the strangest thing? Music, coming from the kitchen. We stepped inside, and there, sitting on the floor in the walk-in freezer, was a radio. An old one, battery-powered, and it was playing an old, scratchy version of a nursery rhyme. "Ring around the rosy." Just that line, over and over again. My girlfriend shut it off. I opened the freezer and froze. Inside was a mirror, standing up against the back wall, half covered in frost. I wiped it off and looked at myself. And for a split second, The reflection smiled at me, but I hadn't smiled. We left the diner without saying a word. Whatever that thing was in the mirror, it wasn't me. It didn't just look like me. It knew me. I could see it in its eyes. And when it smiled, it was like watching something wear my skin from the inside out. We headed back toward the car, hoping maybe it would start this time, even though we both knew it wouldn't. But something was different. The houses we passed before? They were closer. I don't mean physically moved. I mean, the road was shorter now, more narrow, like the town was closing in. And the Welcome to Bedrock Hills sign now read, Population 2. We reached the car. The windows were fogged from the inside. I tried the handle. Locked. That didn't make sense. I'd never locked it. Then we saw the note, pressed against the inside glass, written in marker on a torn sheet of gas station receipt paper. You shouldn't have left. My girlfriend backed up. That wasn't there before. I nodded. I was trying not to panic, but something had been inside our car, and now it was telling us we made a mistake. Maybe the mirror version of you? She whispered. I didn't answer. But yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We decided to head for the church. We'd passed it earlier near the edge of town. Looked abandoned like everything else. Small white building with a crooked cross on the steeple. When we got closer, I noticed the door was slightly open. Inside was music. Organ music. But no one was playing. The pews were empty. Dusty, and the pulpit had old bloodstains on the wood. My girlfriend turned to me and said, "We've been here before." I frowned. What? She pointed at a pew. Carved into the wood were two initials. M+C. Our initials. She took a shaky step back. I swear to God, I've never been here before. But we both knew, somehow, we had. Or someone wanted us to believe that. We searched the church for anything useful. There was a basement hatch, locked shut with a heavy iron latch. Next to it, nailed to the wall, was a page torn from a Bible. One line was underlined in thick, frantic pen. They went out from us, but they were not of us. 1 John 2:19. Beneath that, someone had scribbled in all caps, "If it looks like you, don't talk to it." My girlfriend started crying. I didn't blame her. That night we went back to the gas station, locked the door, huddled in the back room, and around 2 a.m., I heard my own voice, right outside the door. "It's me, let me in." I froze. My girlfriend shook her head violently, whispering, "No, no, no," over and over. Then came another voice, her voice. "Please, it's cold out here, I'm scared." But she was right beside me. We sat there in the dark, holding each other, trying not to breathe, until the door handle twitched, just once. Then silence. By morning, we knew what we had to do. We weren't getting out through roads. The mirrors were lying. The town was shrinking. And whatever was copying us was getting closer. We had to find the center. Because something told me, this town wasn't real. It was built around something else. And if we didn't find it soon, we'd be the next ones to disappear. We didn't sleep again. Not after hearing our own voices behind that locked door. Not after seeing my own smile in that mirror. By morning, the streets outside had changed again. The buildings were even closer, crowding in toward the gas station like they were being drawn to us. And now, in the center of the road, someone had painted something in tar or thick black ink. They're already inside. We made for the church, not to pray, but to open the basement, the only locked thing we hadn't touched yet. The hatch was still there, but the padlock was gone, just hanging open. My girlfriend looked at me and whispered, "This is it." We lifted the door and climbed down into the dark. The basement was cold, much colder than outside, and lined with mirrors, dozens of them, floor to ceiling, All old, some cracked, none reflecting quite right. Some showed us older, others younger. Some didn't show us at all. Then one of the mirrors moved. It wasn't the glass. It was what was inside. In the far corner, one of the mirrors rippled, like water, and something stepped forward. It looked like my girlfriend. Same hoodie, same boots, same scared look. But her eyes? Too wide. And when she smiled, it was like her face didn't know how to do it correctly. It tilted its head, then spoke. "It's warmer here. You'll like it better." We backed up. Another mirror rippled. Me this time, but older, paler, still grinning. "It doesn't hurt after a while," it said. "You forget the road. You forget who you were." Then both of them spoke together, in perfect sync. "Let us in." We ran. Back outside, the town was waiting. Now there were figures in the windows of every house, all of them just standing there watching us. Same height, same shape, same blank faces. And the population sign now said 2, crossed out. 4. We ran toward the diner, ducked inside, slammed the door. That's when we saw it. A stairwell. It hadn't been there before. In the back of the kitchen, behind the freezer where the mirror had been, now a set of stairs leading down. We hesitated, but we knew we didn't have a choice. The stairs spiraled down forever. The air grew thick like syrup. And then we reached a room. A giant, round chamber. Dirt floor, stone walls, and in the middle, a massive mirror. Not cracked, not broken, perfectly smooth, like water in a frozen lake, and there was something inside it, a shape, humanoid but not solid, almost unfinished. It stepped forward, then merged with the reflection of my girlfriend. Her body went stiff beside me, eyes wide. "Get out," she whispered, "before it picks you too." But it was already too late. She wasn't moving. The reflection inside the mirror was staring back at me. Not her, not anymore. Its eyes were too dark, its smile too slow. I grabbed her arm. "We're leaving. Now." But her voice wasn't hers anymore. It echoed strangely, like it was bouncing off walls I couldn't see. "You already crossed over. There's no road back." I pulled harder, and for a second, just a second, her eyes looked like her again. "Burn it," she whispered. "Burn the glass." I took out the only thing I had, a Zippo. Old, half empty, but enough. I flicked it on and held the flame to the edge of the mirror. At first, nothing happened. Then the surface began to ripple, and then scream. Not her, all of them. Dozens, hundreds. Every version of us, and other people too, started clawing at the inside of the mirror, screaming, melting, grabbing for anything. I pulled her back. The mirror cracked. Once, twice, shattered. The moment it broke, everything went silent. No screaming, no echoes, just gone. We woke up on the side of the highway. No town, no gas station, no exit 34. Just our car, parked perfectly on the shoulder. Keys still in the ignition. It started without a problem. My girlfriend didn't speak for a long time. Neither did I. We drove straight to the nearest populated area and never looked back. But the last thing I saw as we left, in the side mirror, a road sign standing crooked by the trees. Exit 34, Bedrock Hills 2 miles, and beneath it, in red spray paint, "It never left."
So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so you never miss a new upload when it drops. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.